now it's sort of like the icing on the cake.
The sorbet.
That's right. The palate cleanser.
You know what? He's more of a Napoleon, I think.
Larry Kudlow from CNBC is on the line. Larry, it's good to have you here. Of course, Larry is seen each day on the Kudlow Report on CNBC, and you can hear him here on the Larry Kudlow Show on WMAL Saturdays at 7 p.m. Okay, so we've got this State of the Union address tonight, this annual pageant that we go through up on Capitol Hill. What do you think you're going to hear?
Well, I'm not too optimistic about this. I mean, I think it's going to be a partisan speech. I think he's going to say on the sequester, I don't really want to cut much spending at all, and I do want to raise taxes. And I think he's got a lot of spending plans elsewhere, stuff we've been reading about and hearing, the usual list, clean energy and infrastructure and yet more education spending to go to the teachers' union. And I think it's going to all be done in a very partisan way. And I don't really think it's going to be pro-growth, and pro-growth is what we need because the economy is barely growing.
Well, Larry Kudlow, you're one of those, you're one of the reasonable people on television. You always approach the show, you're sort of the cool, calm, collected host. But boy, oh boy, last week I tuned in and you seemed pretty hot under the collar over over Leon Panetta's testimony about Benghazi. What do you think about the way this came down and the way the White House is now saying, well, every question's been answered, nothing to see here?
Well, I mean, yeah, I just thought that the Panetta stuff was, really amazing. Not talking to Obama for what, 5, 6, 7 hours? I don't know, whatever it was. For
the rest of the night. They briefed him, and then they walked away and never had contact with the White House again.
He missed a 3 a.m. phone call.
Exactly.
And I think that's important. I mean, look, I think Panetta's a pretty decent defense secretary. I think it slipped out under cross-examination by, I think it was Senator Kelly Ayotte, who's a very smart lady, and I was just stunned by it. That's all. I was just stunned. I mean, America was under attack, and they knew it. And all this other cock and bull story about videos and spontaneous demonstrations was wrong. But we knew all that. What we didn't know was that the defense secretary had no contact with the president during this whole period. And I just find that extraordinary.
Earlier this morning, we had on White House Press Secretary Jay Carney, and we asked him, of course, about this, as you know we would. And he said, oh, well, he was getting briefed throughout the night by National Security Advisor, except that the testimony that came out during Panetta's hearing, and you're absolutely right about the way you characterize it, he almost looked like he didn't want to say. He knew he had to answer truthfully, but he didn't really want to say that the president had not been in contact. And in fact, he went a step further and said, we didn't brief anybody at the White House after that initial briefing.
That was the key.
So if the president was getting updates from his national security advisor, who was updating the national security advisor?
Well, that's right. I mean, that's exactly. I mean, Panetta did say at one point he had no contact with the White House. And
period.
Panetta, being a former chief of staff and budget director, knows what he's saying when he says the White House. He assumed that was the National Security Council. Look, we may never get to the bottom of this, okay? I don't know. It just infuriated me that they try to slip this through, but I doubt very, very much we're going to hear anything like that in the State of the Union.
Well, of course not. But Larry, we're replacing Leon Panetta, who I agree with you. I think he's a pretty
he's a decent man. He really is.
We're replacing him with Chuck Hagel. And earlier, when we had Jay Carney on, Brian asked Jay Carney, he said, "Listen, if you were interviewing someone for a job and they performed the way Chuck Hagel did at his confirmation, you would never give him the job. And what about you, Larry? Would you hire someone who performed the way Chuck Hagel did? Would you hand over the Pentagon to this guy?"
No, I wouldn't, but I just got to tell you, I'm a cynic about this, and I think he's going to be confirmed.
I think you're right, but
I'm a total cynic about this.
But he shouldn't be.
I interviewed this woman who was the Undersecretary of Defense, Michelle Flournoy.
Yes,
she's smart,
a brilliant lady, and she laid out a coherent plan to reduce the peacetime Defense Department. That word peacetime is not exactly right, but since we're leaving Afghanistan and we've left Iraq and so forth. But she said, go after the civilian bloat, go after the entitlements, the health care bloat, go after the military base bloat, and she showed a way to really lower the defense budget, which without damaging readiness, that's the key point, without damaging forward readiness or our security. And Hagel had no such plan, no such outline, no such sort of intellectual concept of that. So the guy's a big disappointment, but we know that. But I don't think they want a strong defense secretary. I will wonder out loud Why did Leon Panetta leave? He was there, 2 years? That's all he was. Why didn't he stay? I think he left because A, he doesn't agree with the policies, and B, he wanted to be a policymaker, and the White House didn't want him to be a policymaker.
He's just there to execute the policy dictated by the White House.
Leon is too smart, too much experience, and much more experience than Obama in these matters, and I think that's the reason he left early. I really do. I'm very cynical about this.
His is really one of the books I'm looking forward to reading after this presidency.
Yeah. Panetta served under Republicans and Democrats and Clinton and what have you, and he's a seasoned veteran. So, I got a little hot under the collar, but I'm going to get pretty hot under the collar tonight because I think this is going to be a tax-the-rich speech. I think it's going to be a liberal agenda speech. I was listening to Valerie Jarrett this morning on CNBC, and she said, we really believe the private sector is the engine of growth. Well, I don't really believe they believe that, and I think this whole business about building out from the middle class is nothing more than an excuse for more spending, which they like to call investments. Infrastructure should be done more at the state level. It's very expensive with union wages. We've poured so much money into education in this country. Where does it go? It doesn't go into the classroom. It doesn't go into the kids' test scores.
Right.
I think it goes into the union bureaucracy.
It's investments, Larry.
And clean energy? Are you kidding me? Clean energy is such a waste of money. What they should be doing is getting that Keystone pipeline through and opening up federal lands for natural gas drilling and fracking. That's what they ought to do. I don't expect to hear any of that.
All right, Larry Kudlow, thank you. It's so good to hear you. And I feel like we're getting you all riled up now for your coverage today of the State of the Union. So you're welcome for the pre-show warm-up.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Larry Kudlow, our weekly visit with him right here on WMAL. Thanks for joining us, Larry.
I love